Welcome to the podcast where we keep it real, talking all things women on the Iconic Women Show with your host, Michelle Watson, author, founder, public speaker, and certified performance coach. Get empowered and inspired while learning about overcoming adversity, spirituality, life, and business strategies that will help you achieve your goals. And now, here's your host, Michelle Watson.
Hello there, and welcome to another amazing episode of the Iconic Woman podcast. I am your host, Michelle Watson, the founder of the Eikonic Women and Your Book and Beyond. I am a multi-award-winning speaker, author, performance coach, and I use my years of expertise from the performance development world, being a speaker, book and business mentor, to now help women who want to create their desired life, share their story and expertise with the world to make an impact, create income, increase their business, and leave a legacy behind. And I'm so grateful to have you on another episode of this awesome podcast. And, I'm not sure, but if you have not yet listened to what led me on this path and what got me to really being led to do this podcast, go back and listen to the very first two episodes that I did, in the podcast, in this podcast series. Go back and listen to it because you will get to hear my story and know the why behind what I do. And I believe that is so important for you to have an understanding of why I'm doing what I'm doing and have an idea of my background and, all the things that I went through that brought me to this point. Well, when I say all the things that I went through, not all, trust me, it's just a snippet. I think it's going to take years and years of podcasting for me to really unleash or release everything that has ever happened to me in life. But I just really hope that you will be able to benefit from everything that I am sharing, and just coming from a place of being vulnerable and open. As I said to you, we are keeping it real right here on the Iconic Woman. In the previous episode, I mentioned about having a reason to give up instead of a reason to keep going on, because I came to this pathway where I realized that I was telling myself everything or coming up with every excuses to give up, or giving myself every reasons. If I don't want to be too harsh and say excuses, let me just say then I was giving myself every reason why I should give up. And I remember reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and there was a section in there, can't remember which chapter precisely, but there's a section in there where he was speaking about a woman that, because she was a mother, she was saying that because I have children, I won't be able to have success. Whilst there was another mother that was saying, actually, because I have children, I have no choice but to be successful. So today, if you've not yet picked up, we're talking about perspective, right? This is the word for this episode, perspective. Now, what is your viewpoint as you're going through life? What is your perspective? From what angle are you looking at life and viewing life? Because as you can hear from those two women that I just spoke about, that was mentioned in Rich Dad Poor Dad, this is two women that were in similar situations, but they had a different perspective of their situation. Right? They had a different perspective of their situation. Now, what I mean when I'm saying perspective is a particular attitude towards or way of regarding something, a point of view, right? It's a point of view. Perspective is the way individuals see the world. It's the way we see the world. It comes from our personal point of views and is shaped by life experiences and values and our current state of mind. The assumptions we bring into a situation and a whole lot of other things. Right? So when I'm talking to individuals about perspective, it's that it changes how a situation occurs to you. The perspective that you have on a specific situation, or the perspective that you have on life, will determine the result that you will get. It will determine the result you get. The way that you see a problem will be the way it is that you deal with a problem. And the way that you deal with the problem will be the result that you will get, right? So if you change how you see something, then you will change how you will respond to the situation. How you view a challenge will determine how you respond to that challenge. It's just like if you see something as a threat, as opposed to it being a safe place. You may, if it's a threat, you may want to put up a bulletproof. You may want to go into an attack mode because you're going to want to attack in order to defend yourself. It's kind of like the fight or flight mode. So if you're seeing something as a threat, you're going to react completely different to that situation as opposed to if you're seeing it as a safe place. You're going to react to an environment differently if you feel like you're being threatened in that environment as opposed to the way of seeing that environment as a safe place, a viewpoint. And I mentioned the word feel there, and I shouldn't really say feel because I believe feeling is different from your perspective. And I'm not going to go into that today. Like, we're going to be here for hours if we go into that today. But I'm going to stay on this chain of thought right now. So the way that you view a point, the way that you look at a point, the way that you see something. I remember going for an eye test and even though I was looking at the same document, because I was being given different lenses, it appeared different to me. The letters appeared different. The formation of the letters that sometimes even seemed, obscure, and some seemed clear, and right? So the lens that you look from, if we're going to break it down to that, let's say we're going down to the lens that you're looking through at the situations that you're facing in life, the lens that you're looking through to look at your own life or somebody else's life. And I always say it's not the challenge that matters, it's how you respond to it. It's not the challenge that matters, but it's how you respond to it. And many people may not get that because they're like, Michelle, listen, I'm going through this rough patch at the minute. How are you telling me that this doesn't matter? But I want you to understand me. A friend of mine would say, I hope you're getting what I'm putting down, or I want you to get what I'm putting down. I'm not saying that the challenge that you're going through is not important. I'm not saying that it's not something that you shouldn't pay attention to, because you need to. How else are you going to deal with it? But what I'm saying is that what is more important is how you see the challenge, because how you see it will determine how you're going to act to it, and how you act to it is going to determine the result that you're going to get. How you respond to a specific situation is going to determine the result that you're going to get. You see, perspective taking, I believe, is a beautiful skill that we have as human beings. The capability to take a different perspective in a situation, in life. To take a different perspective on life's challenges, or just even navigating through life just in general. Even your past. The perspective that you take on your past can change so much. Because you can look at your past as a stepping stone to your success, or you can look at your past as a burden to failure. Now, what do I mean by this? You can look at something that you have gone through in your life and say to yourself, or come to the resolution that because of that thing that I went through, then my dream is no longer possible. You can turn around and decide to yourself that actually what I went through will not define me, but instead it will help me to gain strength and different attributes in order to be successful, in order to get to my destination. I can use the challenges that I went through to be a stepping stone to get me to my desired destination, or I can use these steps as an excuse to say I tumbled and I won't be able to make it. Because by changing perspective, we can gain greater insights and gain deeper happiness. That's my belief. And just from my own experience, I strongly believe that, because I could have decided that what I went through in my past, that was it for me. And to be very frank, there came a point where I did believe that. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and listen to the episode that speaks about I almost killed this girl. the titled podcast that says, I Almost Killed This Girl. And you will get to know more. There was a different perspective that I had at that moment of my life. And that perspective that I had was wanting me to cut my life short. That perspective that I had was wanting me to think that there was no possible other outcome for me. But by changing that perspective, I was able to do beyond what I even imagined I could do. I'm able to now be on this podcast here encouraging women. I've been able to work with women and help them to now achieve their dreams and get to points in life that they didn't even believe that they would be able to. But if I didn't shift that perspective, where would I be today? I often wonder. If I didn't shift perspective, where would I be today? And I guess I want to ask you that question as well. If you don't shift the perspective that you have now, maybe that negative perspective that you have of your life, if you don't shift that today, where will you be in a year's time? Where will you be in a few weeks' time? You see, the shifting of perspective can change that completely. Changing perspective is a healthy exercise. If we want to be empathetic, rational, and more compassionate, I believe we have to look at our perspectives and our viewpoints on how we see situations. However, changing perspective it's not merely about seeing things from the point of view of another, because people tend to think that, in order for me to see things in a different perspective, it needs to be based on what somebody else thought about me or my situation or about a specific event of life. But no, it's also about shifting our own perspective from the norm of how society would want us to view a certain point. There is one scripture that I love reading from our great book, and whenever I say our great book, I'm talking about the Bible, and Romans 12:1, from 1 to 2, and it speaks about, especially verse 2, it speaks about the renewal of the mind. It said we should not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of our minds. And that means that we don't go around thinking the same way that the world thinks and having the same viewpoint that the world has, because this is where a lot of comparison comes from and a lot of built up of anxiety, because we believe at times that our life has to be based on the viewpoint of society. We have to be married by a certain age. We have to have children by a certain age. We need to have a business by a certain age. We need to have a certain money by a certain age. And we add these additional pressures to our life because we're going by the viewpoint and the perspective of another individual. And each and every one of us, we have a different walk of life. Our life is not the same. Our lane is not the same. And so I believe that in our own uniqueness, our lives will be different and take a different formation. And so I don't go on Instagram and look at somebody else's life and wish that I had that life. I have no idea what they went through to get there. I have no idea if I'm going to even be willing to go through what they went through in order to get to where they are. And so I decide to have this perspective about the fact of not following necessarily somebody else's footsteps. Yes, getting examples. Yes, getting lessons that they have learned along the journey and seeing what can be applied to my life and what I should leave, because I cannot take up everything from somebody else's life. Their perspective of life is completely different from mine. Their viewpoint of life may be completely different from mine. And the way that they go about achieving things in their life may be completely different from mine. For instance, when somebody else looks at a client or looks at someone, they may just be seeing the pound or the dollar sign hanging over the head of that individual. But I don't see that. I see a legacy that I'm able to leave behind. I see another life that I am going to be able to bless, right? That is what I see. I see somebody else's life that I can be able to bless, and that ripple effect of that person now being able to use that very blessing and then go on and bless someone else. And so I believe that alternating our perspective allows us to become less self-centered and move to a more compassionate understanding of others and the world around us, but even more importantly, ourselves. Having a different perspective on forgiveness, and somebody may be saying, listen, you're foolish to wanting to forgive that person that has done you so much wrong, but that's their perspective and their viewpoint. But I'm coming from the perspective of, I don't want to be carrying around a baggage of unforgiveness and have it holding me and pulling me down, carrying hatred and bitterness in my heart that is going to hold me back from progressing what it is that I want to progress. I'm not going to be bothered about somebody's perspective of me if they're going to think that because I have forgiven, then I am weak. That's their perspective, and it's not mine. That is their perspective. It's not mine. And you know what? I respect you for your perspective. I respect you for your perspective, but it's yours. The Bible tells us that foolishness unto man is wisdom to God. And so some people may be looking at you based on your perspectives and thinking that you're being foolish because you still want to reach out a kind hand and a kind heart to someone that has done you wrong. And they think that you are being foolish. They think that you are being foolish. But actually you're applying wisdom because you know you don't want to carry certain things with you. You know that what you're working towards is a blessing greater than what man can give to you. And so you may seem or come across as being foolish to others. That's their problem. That's their perspective, because their perspective and their viewpoint on life is not the same as yours. And by stepping outside of our usual perspective, it can become possible to frame arguments in ways that motivate others instead of leaving them feeling rejected. Because you may be coming from a viewpoint of judgment, of judging an individual, instead of being empathetic or being able to see things from the angle that they're seeing things. Or because you're coming from your own perspective and belief of how you think someone else should be living or should live. And that's not what you're called to do. You're not called to do that. You're not called to be in that place of looking down on somebody else and judging them because you have no idea what they've gone through. And that is the reason why I don't believe in looking down on anyone. I have no idea how God is going to turn around their circumstances. I have no idea how God is going to use their current situation that they're going through now to be a stepping stone to their success. I have no idea. And so I always have this perspective that I don't judge anyone or look down on anyone. Yes, I may be further than them with certain things, but guess what? The Bible tells us that the race is not for the swift, but for those that can endure to the end. I don't believe in looking down on anyone. It's perspective. It can become possible to frame arguments in ways that motivate others instead of leaving them feeling rejected. It's serious. For example, seeing things as bad without even taking a fresh view can mean that we get set into a closed loop of negativity. A closed loop of negativity. And even against ourselves. That is even the worst thing. Even against ourselves. Do you know how many times you've looked at yourself the wrong way because of your perspective on how you think you should look, or on how you think you should be, or on how you think you should come across, or on how you think that you should, the stage that you think you should have been by now, a perspective that you took on because of what society has led you to believe, or your friends around you have led you to believe. Do you know how many times you've looked at yourself wrong in the mirror? Looked at yourself with disgust and hate? Do you know how many times? How many times we've done that to ourselves? Close the loop around our neck because of the negativity that we have against ourselves based on society's expectations of us. We do that so many times with even men. And people tear them down for them to feel worthless because of how we've society and how we've told them that they have to be. You know, men don't cry and all of these rubbish. But let me be real. Right now, as I said, we're going to keep it real. A perspective, a viewpoint that we have of how men should be. And we use this viewpoint to crush them and to dig a hole for them to bury themselves in. Telling men that, you know, if you cry, you're not strong. Are you being for real? It's an emotion that God gave to them. If God didn't want men to cry, he wouldn't give them the ability to cry. Every one of us, we're unique in our own way. We're unique in our own way, and we have to be very mindful of how, of the perspective that we have on ourselves. Let's look at it this way. For instance, a relationship breakdown can sometimes lead us to be negative and have negative feelings about our self-worth. Like, for instance, when my first marriage broke down because of the abuse that I was going through, I looked at myself as a failure. I looked at myself, and I'm not going to go much into this because I've already shared this in a previous podcast. I looked at myself as a failure. I said so much negative about myself. My self-worth was zero. And it's a dangerous place to be, because if you don't give yourself any value, then you will just take what anybody brings your way, because you don't think you're worth anything, right? But that was my perspective, because I believe that, if I didn't succeed at something, then I was a failure. And so at that point, I couldn't see the lessons that was showing up for me. And maybe you're going through something right now that is making you want to feel as if you're a failure. But I want you to stop for a moment and actually applaud yourself for at least trying. I want you to actually applaud yourself for at least trying. You tried. It didn't work out. Okay, guess what? Brush yourself off and try again. A changed perspective is so powerful, because the fact that you're now single can be looked at, instead of a failure, be looked at as a start of something new. We have this tendency that when something comes to an end, we should have the perspective that we failed, or that we're finished. We ourselves are finished and there's no more possibilities for us. But having a different perspective could actually make you say to yourself, actually, no, this is a start of something new. It's a start of something new. It's a full stop, and now I can go ahead and start another sentence with a capital letter, right? Your business may have fallen apart. You can choose to say, I was a failure and so it didn't work, and look at all the negativity, and people are going to laugh at me, and I'm a failure, and I messed up, and all of these things. Or you can actually look at it and say, you know what, it's actually a start of something new for me. Because as a result of reframing your view, you might even gain a higher perspective of yourself, even greater success, embracing the part of yourself which might not have felt room for self-expression within a relationship, or within your business, or within yourself. A change of perspective, it can do wonders. It can do wonders. Reframing your past, and I mentioned that, previously. Reframing your point of view can lead to a tremendous helpful results and renewed chances of happiness. Whatever it is that you're going through, you can look at it as a moment for you to be downcasted, a moment for you to quit, a moment for you to speak negatively about yourself, a moment for you to become depressed, a moment for you to write yourself off, or it can actually be a moment for you to write a new chapter for yourself. One chapter has closed. It doesn't mean that the book has closed. It just means that one chapter has closed for another chapter, another new chapter to begin. Another new chapter to begin. This is so effective, when reframing the way in which you see your past. For example, you might say that certain negative outcomes are always bound to happen because of the way you were born, or because of the relationship that you were in, or because of the community that you are from. You might have been told that you are impulsive, or, even hot-headed by others, and believe this of yourself, and take on this conditioning, and take on this identity of yourself, as opposed to having a different perspective or viewpoint of yourself. I remember speaking to someone earlier this week, and just talking to them about the fact that they were saying that, because the weather and the climate has changed, they know that they're going to go into a place of, feeling down, because it happens every year. And I said to her, I want you to change your perspective and change your viewpoint, because you will only get what you see, or what you're looking for, I should say. You will only see what it is that you're looking for. And so if you're expecting and looking for depression to happen because it's winter, then that is what you're going to get. But when God created you, he didn't create you, he didn't create you to function based on the climate. He said he's given you dominion of everything that is on this world, in this world. One of the things that is in this world is the different seasons that we experience, right? So is it that because now summer is no longer here, the sun is no longer shining, that the sun is no longer shining in my life? Like, is my life, my life is going to go to the pots until summer comes back? Is that what I'm going to be telling myself? Having a different perspective will enable you to say, actually, you know what? Let me go out and start socializing. This is the time that instead of me going home and pulling the sheet over my head, let me find other people that are actually going through this, and let us encourage each other. There's so many different activities that you can do even without leaving your house. Netflix party, book clubs, and all of these different things that you can do. Because not being in a place where you're able to shift the perspective is just going to make you accept an identity that is not actually true. It's not yours. And I was just sharing with her about my nan, and when my nan passed away, no one in my family wanted to go to the area where she lived. And I remember I went a few times, and I looked for a few of her friends that lived in that same apartment. And one of the things that I realized, that I always had this negative feeling, even when I'm driving past, I had this negative feeling, and I absolutely hated it, because all that I could see and remember was her coffin being outside that house, and I hated it. And I had to say to myself, hold on, Michelle, what are you going to do? Are you going to continue carrying this feeling and have this viewpoint of this area forever, for the rest of your life? And I had to come to a point where I had to shift perspective, and I was like, hold on, no, that is just one memory out of the many memories that I've had at this place. And I stopped and I stood there for a moment, and I allowed myself to channel into a complete different viewpoint. And I said to myself, and I started looking at the memories, some good memories, and right there I started to smile. And even though a tear rolled down my cheek, I started to smile, because I had a whiff of the cakes that she used to bake, and I just saw myself being in that house and just being around her and all those good memories, and I smiled. I was able to feel a joy in my heart and gratitude that I was even able to have those amazing moments and experiences with her. And so we have to be able to go into a place of being able to shift our perspective from a negative to a positive. I'm not saying that we should be on this loopy-loo cloud nine place where we're just on this this wonderland of being on cloud nine with everything. I'm not saying that, because obviously negative things do happen. But I'm just saying we can have a choice. We can make the choice of remaining in that place, or shifting our perspective, that we can see it from a different angle and a different viewpoint. I was allowing one bad memory to overcloud everything good that happened in that place. And if I didn't decide to shift perspective for a moment, I wouldn't allow myself to channel back into the good memories that I had. A choice I decided to make. And it's a choice you have to decide to make, whether or not you want to stay in that place of feeling down and anxious and just allowing everything that people are doing around you to get to you. Because being positive allows us to express ourselves in levels of being optimistic, being positive, being complimentary and generous with our thoughts, and it will naturally allow us to develop higher levels of self-esteem and a healthier self-image and a healthier viewpoint by getting into the habit of just being positive. Channeling yourself in being positive will allow you to just deal with criticisms and setbacks much, much better. Believe me, because not only does this altered perspective mean that we are better set against potential adversity, but that we will have an ability to problem solve even better. We will become more efficient. Now, what do I mean by this? I remember having a conversation with my dad, a few days ago. And my dad just loves speaking with me. He loves speaking with me. He's always said, Michelle, I love speaking with you because you always give me a different perspective. You always give me a different way to look at a situation that has been bothering me. And there was something that was bothering him about being offended by certain individuals. And what tends to happen when we go into our feelings and our emotions is that our perspective becomes very skewed. That's what I believe. Sometimes we don't allow ourselves to shift perspectives because it's our emotions, it's our feelings. Like we feel hurt. And my dad was feeling hurt. And just speaking with him, I was just sharing with him, and I was saying that, right, guess what? Look at it from this point of view. People are going to do things that's going to offend you. People are going to grate you up the wrong way. It's going to happen. Having a shift of perspective is what will enable you to deal with it a lot better. How is it that you're looking at what they have done? Because guess what? People are walking around with problems, and they're going to come and put it at your door. They're going to come and put it at your door. That's a fact. They're going to come and put their bags at your door. It's up to you whether you're going to open the door and accept it. It's up to you whether you're going to open the door and accept it. So imagine if everything that people came and put at your door, you open the door and you put it in. You're in this room, right? You're in this empty room. And every single thing that people come and put at your door, and they knock on your door, you open the door and you accept it. You accept the delivery and you put it in your house. They knock, deliver, you open, you put it in your house. There's gonna come a point in time when that room is gonna become so full there won't even be space for you. There won't even be space for you. And what do I mean by that? You're going to become so consumed by all that people are doing and people's perspective and their viewpoint of your life and how you should live, to the point where you no longer exist because you've allowed them to take up space and residence in your life. You've allowed them to take up space and residence in your life. And because of that, you get pushed out of your own life and you no longer exist, because everything they come and they lay it at your door, they knock your door and you open it and you take it in. People are walking around with their problems and their issues. It's not for us to take up their burdens. God has told us that we should cast our burdens upon Him because He cares. So if we're here casting our burdens upon God, why are we then taking up other people's burdens? Why are we out here taking up the fact that somebody has said that you're ugly, that somebody has said that you're not good enough? That is their perspective. It does not have to be yours. Les Brown always says somebody else's opinion of you is not who you are. Somebody else's perspective of your life is not your life. Somebody else's perspective and viewpoint of you is not you. And people are going to do things that will offend you. And it's your choice to decide on what perspective you're going to look at it from. And most times I choose to look at it from a perspective of, you're funny, and I laugh. Now, guys, this took work and it took practice. It took practice, but it enabled me to create a filter system that what was not for me got put in the bin. Think about a sift, and I think I've mentioned this before in a previous podcast about you using a sift. And when you want to remove dregs, if you have a drink and it has a lot of residue in it and you want to remove the residue, you get a sift and you pour it and you separate the residue from what it is that you want. And in life, you have to learn how to sift what people put through to you. We sift it because not everything is meant for you, not everything is good for you. And so you have to get to a place where you sift and you put the dregs, you put the residue in the bin because it's not good for you. The fact that somebody has brought violence to you, the fact that somebody has brought negativity to you doesn't mean that you have to take it on. You have the choice whether or not to open the door or keep the door shut against certain things that is not of you. I believe that negativity is a leech that sucks people dry. And you have that choice whether or not you're going to allow people to suck you dry. Right, let me share something with you. I remember going into a store one day and I was in the queue. There was about 2 other people in front of me. There was another black lady in front of me. I can't remember who else was in front of her. And this white man came in, this Caucasian man came in, and he was effing and blinding and saying, "Get out my effing way, you effing monkey, da 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 da." And he was looking at me, and I was just continuing about doing what I was doing whilst I was standing there in the queue. He passed all 3 of us and he went to the front of the queue and went straight to the cashier. And it was almost like a standstill, like everybody was waiting for this moment of commotion to happen. I was in my jeans and my jumper and my trainers, and so I guess they're looking at me and they're thinking, okay, this yardie girl is gonna let rip. That's what they tend to call us Jamaicans, isn't it? This yardie girl is gonna let rip. Another identity that is put on people, right? And you can choose to accept it or leave it. Choice is yours, right? And he's there carrying on with his ranting. They served him, because I think the cashier was a bit hesitant at the beginning, but she served him. I guess she thought to herself, if I serve him, the quicker I serve him, the quicker he'll be gone. And people were waiting. They were waiting. I could feel the tension, and they were waiting for something to kick off. Nothing kicked off. Nothing kicked off. I didn't respond. Because he wasn't speaking to me. So I went to the cashier, and the cashier was being all apologetic and everything. And I'm like, you don't need to apologize. No one's offended me. And she's looking at me like, I said to her, am I a monkey? And the realization or the penny dropped for her, and she laughed and she said, good one. And I remember I was on my way to my cousin's, one of my little cousins. It was her birthday, and I was just bringing a gift to her. My husband was already there. The family was already there, because my husband went straight from work and went there, and I made my way there, and I was just sharing with them, and everybody was like, what did you do? What did you say to him? Didn't you tell him this? Didn't you say this? And I was like, no, I didn't answer him. I was busy doing my own thing. And they're like, what? Are you being for real? You must be joking. I would have said this and I would have said that. And I'm like, why would I answer? I said, do I look like a monkey? I said, if I was a monkey, I would be in the zoo. Perspective, right? Shift of perspective. I said, I'm not a monkey. If I was a monkey, I would be in the zoo. So if I answer him, that means that I'm acknowledging that I'm a monkey. I'm acknowledging that I'm a black monkey. My mother didn't give birth to a monkey. My mother is not a monkey. So why am I going to answer him? Why am I going to take on board what is not mine? Why am I going to take on board what is not mine? Why am I going to take on board an identity that is not mine? So when people are calling you all different kind of names under the sun, why are you getting vexed and irate? That's their perspective. That's their opinion. Okay, let them ride with it. No, I don't have to take it. What am I taking it for? It's not mine. I chose not to take it. That's perspective. Right? It's perspective. Somebody cuts you off on the road. You made it safely. It's okay. Don't need to go into a road rage, driving down, arguing side by side, and then next thing you know, there's an accident and things escalate and your time gets delayed even more. So you're complaining about the fact somebody cut you off and that happened in, like, let's say 30 seconds. And you're going to spend the next 5 minutes arguing over 30 seconds. Are you being for real? Do you know how precious life is? Do you know how valuable time is? You're going to spend 5 minutes, 30 minutes arguing over 30 seconds. Guys, let's keep it real out here. Let us keep it real out here. What is the point? Seriously, what is the point? And these are the shifts in perspectives that you need to have to get you through life right now, the way that life is life in. These are the perspectives that we have to look. We have to have that shift in perspective. I can choose to be offended by someone, or I can choose to not open the door to let them come and put their baggage in my life. How many times have you left your house in a good mood, and by the time you go out there, somebody's upset you, and then that upset has carried you throughout the whole week? That one thing that individual has said has determined your state of mind throughout the whole week. They've monitored your state. They've managed your state. They had you on a puppet on a string for the whole week, even though you didn't see them after that one moment, that one exchange that you had with them. You didn't see them again, but yet they remained in your life for the whole week. You opened the door for them to come and drop their baggage in, and they left you with that baggage. They left you with that baggage, and you chose to carry that baggage around. Why? Why? I'm not doing it. I'm sorry. I need my space for all the good and great things that I want to do in this life. I have no time for your baggage. I have no time for your baggage out here, right? I'm just going to share 5 tips with you right now as we round up this episode. First thing I want to share with you, look for something positive. In everything, look for a positive. Yes, you've made a mistake. Yes, you've messed up. But guess what? In that mess, there is a message. In that test that you're going through, there is a testimony. Look for it. It's important. What you're going through in this season is gearing you up for the next season. So look for it, for what it is that you can grasp from this season that can help you in another season. And sometimes that very season comes right back around. It comes right back around. But because you didn't take note the first time, when the second time comes, you fall again. You fall again. Because you didn't take note the first time. You were busy complaining and grumbling instead of paying attention to what was actually happening with you, how you were feeling, how you were thinking, the thoughts that you were having, the way that you acted, the result that you got from the action that you took. Because if the action brought about a good result, then when the season comes back around again, then you know what action to take. So look for the positives in the negatives. Look for the positives that you can pull from the negative moments that's happening in your life. Every day I thank God for Jekyll and Hyde, my ex, because guess what? If I didn't go through what I went through with him, I don't know if I would have been on this path that I am on now. So I'm grateful. You see, if you pay attention, you will recognize that what you look for is what you will see. So if you're out there continuously looking for negative is what you're going to see. So instead of looking for an outcome that is negative or full of flaws, look for something positive that can be beneficial or add to your life rather than diminish an area of its worth. As I mentioned, negative is like a leech. It sucks away. It doesn't add anything. So by shifting perspective to search for happiness, you can create it as opposed to waiting for it. The second one is be grateful. Have gratitude. Be grateful for every moment, even the challenging ones. Even the challenging ones. Even the Bible tells us that it's through these challenges that we grow stronger and we develop an endurance and we build our character. I don't believe I would be who I am today if I didn't go through and experience the different avenues of my life that I experienced. And every time I realize that every time that I've gone through something, it's built or strengthened another muscle in me. Going through the gym of life, I call it the gym of challenges that build those muscles, those faith muscles, those muscles that make you recognize how actually strong you are mentally, how strong you are emotionally. Those different muscles. And so be grateful. Be grateful for those moments. Find different things to be grateful for. I was sharing with a woman the other day, you're complaining and grumbling about these little different nitpicking things about your husband. Have you ever stopped one day and just make a list of the things that you're grateful for? And when she started to list them, she was in awe because she said, you know what, I spent so much time complaining about the things that he wasn't doing, that I couldn't even acknowledge the things that he is doing, and acknowledging the fact that actually somebody else is out there that would desire to have my husband. I have moments when I go through physical pain, and there's times when I want to grumble and I have to remind myself, Michelle, perspective. And anytime I go through those moments when the pain is severe, I say, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord, that I am feeling this pain, because if I was dead, I wouldn't be able to feel it. Perspective. We can choose to look at things in a certain way that will continue to tear away and eat away at us. Or we can shift perspective and see how we can use this situation and turn it around for our good. The Bible says what the enemy meant for evil, our God turned it around for our good. So you speak the positive to counteract the negative. Counteract the negative. The world is filled with so much negatives. You go out into the world, it's negative. For some of you, you're in your house, you're receiving negative. Maybe it's from your parents or from a sibling or from your partner. You go into the workplace, it's negative. So at what point are you going to start feeding yourself with positivity to counteract that negativity? And until you have a shift in perspective, you won't be able to do it. So you have to shift that perspective and say to yourself, I'm going through this for a reason. I don't know yet what the reason is, but I believe that it's for a building up of my character. Change the angle you are looking from. Change the angle you're looking from. If you're looking at something from a place of hate, change the angle. Because when you're looking at something from a place of hate, you're only going to see negative. If you think that someone doesn't like you, if you just have this thought and you think that someone doesn't like you, every time you see that individual, all you're going to see is negative, and you're going to convince yourself even more that that person doesn't like you. Think about it. How many times has that happened to you? You believe that somebody doesn't like you. You believe that somebody doesn't like you, and every time that you're around that person, it's almost like you've proved to yourself more over and over that individual does not like you. Until one day you get to have a proper conversation with that individual, and you actually realize that they may have just been going through a tough moment, but you took it on personally. And because you already had it embedded in your head and in your mind that this person didn't like you, all you saw of the individual was negative. So change the angle that you're looking at things from. Change the angle. Okay, I'm in a job that I detest, and every time that I go into it, it just wears me down more and more. Change perspective. Say to yourself, you know what, this job is actually my stepping stone to actually go to move and do what it is that I desire to do. Don't curse out that job that is putting food on your table. If it's that you desire to start a business, because I made this mistake at the beginning. Because I wanted to start my business so badly, I made my workplace become a place of hate. And so every time that I went in there, all I saw was negative. And I started to shift perspective and actually started to realize that, hold on, this job is actually providing me with the finances that I'm using to build my business. It's keeping a roof over my head and food on the table for my family. Shifting perspective, and there was now a new bounce in my walk, and it encouraged me to do the work so that I could make the money to build my business. I spoke about filtering before. Filter. Whatever you're listening to, the environment that you're around, the people that you're around, is it all feeding you or starving you? Is it feeding you? Or is it sucking you dry? Are you becoming malnutritioned? Are you becoming a baggage holder for other people? Every nook and cranny that drops a word into your spirit, a negative word, you hold on to it. Filter. I'm not here to tell you that life is going to give you everything that you're looking for. I'm not here to tell you that life out there is a bed of roses. I'm not here to tell you that you go out there and you're going to just interact with so many people that are just beautiful and just wonderful and just great. I'm not telling you that at all. I'm not telling you that at all. I'm just encouraging you by letting you know that a shift in perspective will enable you to deal with these situations a lot better. It will enable you to be in a better place and a better state of mind. It will enable you to grow to levels and lengths that you didn't believe you had the capacity or ability to do. So instead of going out there and conforming to the world, why not be different? Why not be different? Instead of opening your door to every single baggage that an individual knocks and comes and puts in your room, why don't you make that decision to say, you know what? Actually, no, I'm not going to take on your baggage today. It's not mine to carry. Somebody else's unhappiness is not yours to carry. Somebody else's stress is not yours to carry. The change of the weather is not yours to carry. God's given you a life to live, and for you to live it abundantly. And so I just want to leave that with you in this episode that I do hope has spoken to you and has really allowed you to gain some tips for your life as you go out there. I really do hope that it has blessed you. Remember, you're an iconic woman. You're that bold influencer, that spiritually equipped woman, authentic, wise, ambitious, and humble. A woman of prominence, value, authority, creativity, and authenticity. A risk taker who builds her home and those around her. You are selfless. You are courageous. And you are beautiful. I want you to remember that you are selfless. You are courageous. And you are beautiful. So you go out there and you write the next chapter in your book called Life. Love you all.
Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Iconic Women Show. We look forward to having you again. So don't forget to subscribe and do the 3 R's. Leave your ratings, reviews, and recommend to your family and friends.